I like to help people because if you could learn from my mistakes, I am a thick-headed Italian and I got wrecked for a long time. So if I could teach you something from the mistakes that I made that helps other people avoid those mistakes, that's really the goal of my channel.
Have you been in a bad trade before? And what have you done emotionally, mindset wise, psychologically to kind of weather that storm?
Yeah, so I'll give you a good example or a good situation and a bad situation. I've been in a ton of bad trades. I've been in bad trades recently, as every trader is. And basically, what I used to do, which is not what you're supposed to do, is I would it could kind of go two ways. I used to pull out of bad trades way too early. As soon as I saw the trade going against, as soon as my trade was in the red, I'd be like, "Oh, I was wrong," and I would close the trade only to have the trade go my way anyway. And if I had stayed in the trade, I would have won it. So that's kind of how I used to handle it. But if I'm in an actually like an actual bad trade that's totally going south at this point, I just get stopped out at a small loss. That was a big thing that, stop losses are something that developed late in my career. I used to get wrecked all the time. I tell people this constantly. This is why I like to help people, because if you could learn from my mistakes, I am a thick-headed Italian and I got wrecked for a long time. So if I could teach you something from the mistakes that I made that helps other people avoid those mistakes, that's really the goal of my channel. But anytime I'm in a bad trade, I just, like I said, I have those levels set. My take profit is already set. My stop loss is already set. So when I see it going against my TA and it looks like it's going the wrong way, I now sit on my hands and I just watch the candle hit that stop loss and just get me out of the trade. And I take a small loss. So it's not bad. It's really, I always tell people it's more about risk management than anything.
So what's your risk management strategy?
So for me, it really depends on the trade. A really common stop loss strategy is people will set their stop losses above or below a previous swing high or swing low, which is totally fine. There are some problems with that because it's really easy to get stop hunted when you're using that technique. But getting stopped out is just a part of trading. But for me, really what I like to do is I do typically have tighter stop losses. So I very rarely will risk more than 1% of my actual account size. So I really need to lose a lot in a row because really what I like to go for is small loss, small loss, small loss, giant win, tiny loss, tiny loss, tiny loss, giant win, right? So really the way I manage my risk, like I do get stopped out a good bit, but like I said, like I can lose 7 trades in a row, and then that one winner just covers all the losses plus profit. So that's really kind of how I handle it.
You don't seem like somebody that is affected emotionally by things. Like you just have like a very fun, easy energy about you that just kind of stays in like a green zone. I have this chart and it really talks about the fear, on one extreme, also the FOMO on the other extreme, and those being kind of red zone areas, and then kind of getting into a little bit of a yellow zone, and then into a green zone, and green zone being this like centered, grounded, non-emotional, logical, very clear place to obviously enter trades and trade from. You don't seem like somebody that strikes me being like extremely emotional. If anything, you seem like somebody that's very level-headed and just kind of has like a really good perception of reality. Would you say that you get caught up at all in the red, in the fear, in the FOMO, or any of that, or do you feel like you've really kind of mastered the mindset in trading?
So I love that question because I think I kind of have two answers. The one answer is your read on me is definitely accurate. But I think the reason I'm like this is probably because not even really related to trading, just in my past life, I had been the complete opposite. I'd been that person that when they get upset, they're really upset. And when they get happy, they're really happy. And that kind of mentality gets you in trouble in both ways. So like I said, I'm a thick-headed Italian, so I struggled with that for a long time. I lost relationships, I had lost friends, just kind of just being super emotional about a lot of different things. And after a while, just hitting my head against that wall, what is wrong, what is wrong, what is wrong, eventually I finally, learn from it and try to really control my emotions in other areas of my life, and have like, that's like one of the biggest things I think I've accomplished in my life, is just completely changing my mentality there. And it just so happens to translate really well into trading. It's like you said, like looking back and connecting the dots, it's like all these weird things that happened in my life. It's like my life knew that I was going to wind up here and was preparing me for that. But to answer the question for the people at home, 100%, I feel the FOMO. I feel the fear. When my trades are in the red, I want to close the trade so bad. But it's really about just having the discipline to not act on those emotions. So I always tell people, like, I was in a bad trade on Friday, and I was in profit, and it just started like looking like it was going to go the other way, and like my body's going crazy. I'm like, oh my god, should I close it? Should I go? But I just don't react. I just have my level set, and I just sit there and I sit on my hands, and I just wait for that stop loss or the take profit to get hit. But it's definitely hard. I think it's important for people to realize that, like, even me, like, I definitely feel those emotions. It's really just about controlling your impulse to actually act on them.
And what do you do to control that? I mean, besides sit on your hands, like, I know that there's been a time where you didn't sit on your hands and you went and you acted. So like when somebody's in that and experiencing that, because when we're in the red, what people don't realize is we don't have access to logic in those places. We're swimming in emotion, and when we're swimming in emotion, we have no access to logic. We make decisions from a very impulsive place, and we're also slightly hallucinating from what actually is happening. And we don't realize, like, that's not the time that you make business decisions. That's not the time when you talk to your spouse or your kids. It's not the time. Like, this is not the time. You have no access to your internal resources, right? So what do you do to navigate that? Because you've probably observed yourself enough times being in those emotional places where you're like, I gotta sit on my hands, I gotta sit. But like, do you walk away from your computer? Do you go back and journal? Do you read it from your journal? Like, what are the things that you do tangibly that would help you not go down those rabbit holes of emotion and make impulse decisions?
Yeah, Jessica, you're asking great questions. The answer to this is uh a lot of times, like, so two things. A lot of times, simply just getting up and walking away from the computer, as long as you have your level set. Don't walk away from a computer without a stop loss, but as long as you have your level set and you know the computer's going to do its thing, sometimes walking away from the computer, that's like really the number one thing that would help me. But it's I think there's been some times where, like I said, like in the beginning, anytime my trade would be in the red, I would want to pull out right away. But then eventually one day I didn't, because I walked away from my computer, and I actually, like, once you become comfortable with your trade being in the red, like, a lot of times you're not going to get into a trade and it's just going to go directly the way you think. Usually the market's confusing. It'll try to trick you. And it's really, once I spent a lot of time and I saw multiple trades, like some of my best trades had lived in the red for like a day or two before finally playing out. But it was because I trusted my TA, had the level set, and walked away from my computer, that I actually won those trades. So just understanding, and just a lot of it's experience, like having experience where, like, some of the trades that I thought were going to be horrible wound up being great. And I would have never known that if I pulled out of them too early. So yeah, really, it does come down to just having your level. For me, having your level set, definitely getting up and walking away from the computer helps as well.
If emotions are the hardest game to win in all of this, are there practices like mindfulness or specific things that you personally do to navigate and manage those emotions in a productive way?
Absolutely. And it could happen outside of the world of trading. For me, granted, I will be completely transparent, I am trying to get back on this bandwagon, but simply just building self-discipline in any area of your life is going to help you in trading so much. And it almost sounds corny, but it is like the number one thing that is going to help people. Like for me, I started going to the gym like every single day. I didn't lift every single day, but I would at least go to the gym every day. If I ran on the treadmill, whether I was lifting or running on the treadmill, just making sure, like, this is something I do every day, regardless of how I feel. I don't care if I'm in a bad mood or I'm tired or I'm a little bit nauseous. I'm still at least going to show up to that gym. And then eventually, it takes time. If you do that over time, even like your diet, if you have a strict diet and it's like, I don't even like this food, but I'm going to eat it because I know it's good for me. Once you build that muscle, this is something I've been trying to do my whole life. Like that's just like always my discipline is a muscle that I'm trying to build consistently throughout my whole life, and it'll never end. And it's one of the number one things that will help me, because that's basically what's happening when you're in your trade. When it goes the wrong way, you don't feel good, but you don't pull out of your trade when you don't feel good. You pull out of your trade when the information tells you to. So it's kind of the same thing as going to the gym when you don't feel like it. So I would say the number one thing is whether it's drinking a certain amount of water every single day. I'm trying to do that too. I used to be much better. Now I'm much more busy, so I have to reschedule a lot of things. Yes. But whether it could be something as simple, you don't have to, go get jacked, right? Like you can just make it like, I'm going to drink this whole bottle of water every single day, and I don't care if I'm not thirsty, like it's going to happen. And that's going to help people infinitely in their trading, in my opinion.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the gym, because I think that that's exactly the same exact philosophies that I am going to move over into the trading space, because it's, in investing as a whole as well, because it's all about the self-discipline. It's, you have a plan, right? And this is for investing. This is in trading. This is in working out. Like, you have a plan. There's rules to the game. And if you follow those rules and you go into the game, if we're talking about the gym game, it's like, okay, there's a caloric intake. There is a expenditure of energy that you go and do at the gym. You can go lift weights, or you can go do cardio. There's rules to the game. And then there's also the short term, I'm going to trade the donut for the cucumber, and long term, I'm going to have this result. And the same thing for investing, same thing for trading. Like, you're trading that short term for that long term, and you're really having that long term result. But there's a reason that there's only a certain percentage on the planet that have gone and had the body of their dreams, is because they're willing to go through that self-discipline. And, when I'm in the middle of a workout that I want to stop, my body is screaming to stop. It translates in the exact same way as a trade, when my body's like, get out of here. And I'm like, no, we're going to see this thing through, because we made a commitment, and we're going to follow this plan, because this is the outcome that we're going for. So I love that you said all of this, because it so translates in all of the areas of life. And there's a reason that there's a certain percentage of people that are able to have that result. So thank you so much for that. Are you invested in any other asset classes, or are you just straight crypto?